Hello there, and welcome to the video for this month's focus topic, which is about nervous system regulation. Today we're going to talk about, in this video, we're going to talk about what people think nervous system regulation is. I will share with you my perspective, what I believe nervous system regulation actually is, why it's important, and then some examples about why it really matters. You know, nervous system regulation is, well, regulation itself is defined as the process of controlling or managing something, right? It's about maintaining control, order, and stability. Most people believe when they're talking about nervous system regulation that nervous system regulation means order, control, and stability of the nervous system. I believe that this is harmful because our goal should not be to control a system that has a natural mechanic to it. As we know, our nervous system is responsive to cues of safety and danger. If there's danger, our nervous system goes into sympathetic first, and then we can respond accordingly, right? And our body's our biology is designed to support that. Our nervous system moving into different states is healthy, even if the perception of danger, if our neuroception, so the perception of our nervous system, is perceiving something that someone else may not consider dangerous. Maybe it's because we have trauma. That is still important information for us, right? I'm not saying that it's healthy to remain in sympathetic or dorsal all of our lives by any stretch. However, this idea of regulating so that we don't go into a state that our body thinks we should go into is harmful. If our body says there is danger, or our nervous system perceives there's danger, we ought to respect our body's response to that. And that brings us to what I believe regulation to actually be. I believe that regulation is bringing full awareness to where your nervous system is. Nervous system regulation is about having presence to understand how your nervous system is responding to cues of safety and danger. So nervous system regulation is about presence. We don't have to control or manage ourselves back into ventral because our bodies do that naturally. Ventral is our homeostasis. Ventral is where our body wants to get. And if it's not there, that's important information for us to have. If we force ourselves to stay in ventral, and I'm using this downward motion, imagining the actual infinity model of the autonomic nervous system, right? Where we have sympathetic and dorsal, and then the third circle at the bottom of ventral, right? So if we're like trying to push ourselves and hold us in ventral all the time, we're fighting against our biology. And that's unhealthy. Our job is to bring presence to our nervous system because that opens the doorway for us to work with our nervous system. And by work with our nervous system, I mean to be in relationship with it, to understand it, to bring love to our nervous system so that we know what's happening inside of us and why it's happening. It's how we can begin, this presence is about how we can begin to unravel the things that are going on inside in our neuroception, in our implicit memory, our subconscious or our conscious mind, and take better care of ourselves when we are in the various states. We don't have to force getting into any particular state, including ventral, in order to be healthy. Presence and awareness with our nervous system makes the difference between our nervous system leading us and us leading our nervous system. Why is this important? If we aren't regulated, in other words, if we don't have the awareness and presence with our nervous system, then we will be reactive. Our nervous system gives us a response which is automatic. It doesn't have nuance, it doesn't have discernment, it doesn't have thought, it doesn't have presence. It's a reaction. It's like blinking if we're going to get our eye poked, or a gag reflex, or when we touch a hot stove, like we just immediately pull away, right? It's just a reaction. Now that can be really important and helpful. Again, that's another area we don't want to regulate that. But these days things are a little different than they used to be when our nervous system was created or when it developed or evolved, right? If we aren't regulated, we don't have presence and awareness, we are very reactive to things. And these days, that could be a look from someone, that could be an email from someone, it can be simply a memory that comes up for us. If we are reactive, we're leaving a lot of other parts of us behind. The only thing that's present is our nervous system in sympathetic or dorsal. And that's like the whole picture. And what we know is that there is more to us here. Like if you're going to get hit by a car, or if you're going to put your hand on a hot stove, we want our nervous system. There are those specific extreme circumstances where a reactive nervous system is super helpful. Reflexive, reactive can be helpful, but those are extreme circumstances that most of us are not facing day to day. And if we leave the rest of us behind when we get an email that doesn't sit well with us, or the tone of our partner or a friend doesn't work for us, and we have these big reactions, that can cause harm, and we can leave a lot of parts of us behind that would help us to respond in a much healthier, productive way. So if we are regulated, if we have presence and awareness about what's going on in our nervous system, we can be responsive. We'll be able to take an entire integrated system with us into whatever situation. It doesn't mean that we're not going to get into sympathetic or dorsal, but we're not going to leave any of us behind. All of us can show up in sympathetic and dorsal, and we can make an integrated decision. We can be responsive to the situation at hand instead of reactive. We can be agentic, meaning that we can use our agency with presence, with awareness, with all of us being there in the situation instead of only a tiny fraction of us. And in that way, we'll be able to use our entire system, including our nervous system, to respond to elevated states in our nervous system in ways that have intention, that are purposeful, that are meaningful, that are in integrity, without ignoring any part of us, without trying to control any part of us, but being in relationship with all of us. This is what nervous system regulation is all about. So let's talk about some examples. It used to be that, thousands of years ago, maybe even just hundreds of years ago, the nervous system evolved to just to be aware of danger. And in the past, danger often meant potential death, right? Like danger was like danger, right? Like your life was at risk. There was a lion nearby, right? And if you weren't paying attention to it, can you imagine having the society's general perception of a regulated nervous system and being like, oh, I don't have to feel sympathetic. There's a lion over there. I'm fine. And then you get attacked by a lion, right? You don't want to regulate. You don't want to control and manage that. When it's time to run, you better get out, right? Slowest person loses. Right? So our nervous systems evolved to protect us from life threat. There wasn't a lot of nuance that was needed. Either your life was threatened and you either have to run, fight, collapse, appease, or be fine in a safe state eventually, right? Yeah, they're just, I mean, it was going to be like one of those two things that was like a lot less nuanced. But these days requires a lot more nuance because life is way more complex than it used to be. But our nervous system really hasn't caught up yet. And so having a regulated nervous system, the presence and awareness to be with our nervous system is how we help evolve our nervous system. See, if I get an email from someone that has rejection in it, and I'm sensitive to rejection, I'm going to have the same exact sympathetic nervous system response in my body as if someone 2,000 years ago saw a lion approaching. Nervous system response is the same. It feels the same in my body, like I'm about to be attacked. I'm about to lose my life. It doesn't make any sense up here, but in our body, it certainly does, right? But back 2,000 years ago, there was no threat by email. There was no nuance to it. Either there was a lion nearby or there wasn't. Like it was pretty simple. And so if I am not regulated, meaning present and aware in my nervous system to realize, oh, look, I'm having this response in my nervous system. Is that the response that is healthy to be in relationship to an email? Is it my job? My nervous system tells me in high sympathetic that I have to either fight, get ready to do battle, or to run, to appease the person, or to completely collapse. Those are like the choices that my nervous system have because it's just designed to preserve my life. Threat is threat. Email, lion, same. When I bring regulation into the mix, which is necessary because of the nuance of the complexity of our environment, then I become agentic. I can use my agency. I can use all of my parts, my integrated self. I have access to my higher self, higher wisdom, discernment. And it's not that I don't have high sympathetic, but in our model, sympathetic, dorsal, and ventral. It's like if that ventral circle was like ink or watercolor, and I would just like tease up that green color up further into like stretching that circle a little bit into sympathetic, into that higher state. Being regulated gives me the opportunity to have at least a thread of safety connected to my heart, connected to my body. I can still feel the activated state, but I also haven't lost the thread that I'm actually safe. Because there's a lot of parts of me that know when I get an email that has rejection in it, that I actually am safe. But if I react from the sympathetic state, I'm leaving all of those parts behind. And so nervous system regulation is about the presence and the awareness to hold all of it, a larger perspective, to not lose sight. Often in sympathetic, our vision narrows strictly to the threat. We can't even see anything else. Regulation reminds us that I can keep focused, but I'm also going to pay attention to my periphery. There's more to be seen. We can do both, right? It's not an either or thing anymore. 2,000 years ago, it was an either or thing. Either you run from the lion, you fight the lion, or you get killed by the lion. It's pretty black and white. Nowadays, Regulation allows us to remember a much broader perspective. When we have elevated nervous system responses like sympathetic and dorsal, those aren't wrong, as we know. We just want to be aware when we are in them so that we can be in healthy relationship with them. Healthy relationship with ourselves, the person who is having those experiences. It becomes unhealthy. Sympathetic and dorsal become unhealthy when we are reacting. In today's world, when an email that says no thanks feels like a violent threat to me, it's not healthy for me to want to punch them in the face. That's not healthy. It's okay to maybe want to, but reacting, actually engaging with that, letting that, my nervous system lead that, like I feel like punching them and I go and punch them. We see that a lot in the world these days, right? This is unregulated nervous systems. The nervous system is leading. This is why we see road rage. So reacting is one of the things, but the other thing is getting stuck. We react because we're not regulated. We don't have that awareness. Getting stuck in a nervous system response, which is what many of us do. It's not our fault. It's because we don't have support. We get stuck in a nervous system response because we don't have the support, either internally or from others in our family, our friends, our social circle, whatever it might be. We don't have the support to move out of those heightened nervous system responses. Support is really, really important. The key to getting support is regulation. If we're regulated, we are aware and we are present that we are in an elevated state in our nervous system. That awareness alone can be can make the difference between realizing I'm really activated, I need support, or not having that presence means that we just get stuck there or act out from that place. And support will help. So this month, this is what we're going to be talking about: nervous system regulation, presence and awareness with our nervous system, and practices that can help support us in being with that. So I'm looking forward to spending this month and doing these practices and this work together. And if you have anything specific that you have questions on about nervous system regulation or anything that I've talked about in this video, please feel free to ask. We're going to be spending time every single week on this. I'll be recording videos and sharing practices and all sorts of good things. So I look forward to walking through this with you in the month of March. Bye for now.